don't remember what the number is. We were drafted in August of 1941. We were down in basic training in Georgia when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. They cut our training short, put me into an infantry regiment, and by March of that year I was on my way down the Atlantic Ocean through the Panama Canal and down onto the South Pacific. The Japanese had got down as far as an island called Guadalcanal, which had an airstrip on it, and they could control the South Pacific with that airstrip. And they sent our infantry group and some Marines in to take that island, which we did. And part of that story is about money. We were getting, I think, $28 a month, which was kind of a lot for us, all us young guys. A lot of the fellows I knew came off of farms, never had much change, pocket change before, and there was no such thing as a wallet. We didn't have them at those times. So any money you got in bills, you folded them up and you carried them in your pocket. Well, all pay that I got out of that $28, I think I was sending half of it home to my mother. We just carried it around in our pants pocket. And if you slept on the troop ship, you slept in your troop pants, and you lived with them, and them bills were in your pocket, and you never had too much time to spend it or any place to do that. And you kind of take it out and you counted. And anyway, you got over to the South Pacific, and we got into campaigns there, taking that island. And all the time this money was in your pocket, it would get unfolded and get wet when we walked through little rivers or streams, or slept out in the rain or in the ground. And it really got kind of, after a couple of months, it was kind of used. Well, after the campaign, we took the island, and they gave us an area that we were going to live in, and we had to kind of clear that out and make it livable. First we slept in our pup tents, which are very close to the ground, and of course we slept on the ground. We didn't have any other materials, and you slept in your clothing. And of course the money slept with you. Well, after we got the area kind of cleared a little bit, and there wasn't much to do after supper time. We ate out in the open, and after supper we had maybe 2 hours of light before it got dark. There was no electricity or anything. So there's not too much you can do. Some guys played cards if they had a deck of cards, and other people played dice. And they gambled for a few dollars or change you had. I played dice. Well, you play dice on the open ground, and you would bet $1, and you would win maybe a couple of dollars, or somebody else would win it, and they'd pick up these dollars and dollar bills, and they'd stuff them in their pocket, and then they would take them out, and they would bet them again. And when you picked them up, and one of them would get a little sand in them, and they get worn quite a bit. And after a few weeks, those dollar bills started to fall apart. And they got in 2 pieces, and then they got into 3 or 4 pieces. And then you couldn't throw all these little pieces in, so they rolled them up into balls. And you would bet the dollar, and everybody betted the ball the dollars rather than the good dollars. And I got kind of lucky for a while there, and if I won 2 of those ball dollars in a pot, I would take one out of the pot and put it into a pocket, separate pocket. And after a week or so, I had a number of those in my pocket. Well, the story kind of shifts over to, there's a saying that the Army travels on the stomach. Well, they don't tell you that what goes in your stomach, you got to come out. So you don't have a real facilities to do that when you're moving around in the Army, and particularly in combat times. So what the Army has is a thing they call a slit trench. The slit trench is maybe 2 to 3 feet deep, about 1 foot wide, and maybe about 10 feet long. Now, I've always found those there that when they get filled a little bit, somebody covers them over and digs another one. I have never seen these guys that did that, but there was always one there. Well, we used those for a while, and then one day an engineer truck pulled into our area, and they got a lot of wood on. I said, what are those guys doing? They said, oh, they're going to build a latrine for us. A latrine is the Army's word for a men's room. And only it's an outdoor thing. It's like a big wooden box that they dig a deep hole and they put this box over the hole, and it had 8 seats in it. Open out in the open, no background or anything. So that's what they were building that day. And
8 seats.
Huh?
8 seats.
8 seats. 4 one side and backed up with 4 other seats.
Just sitting out in the open, exposed to nature.
Yeah, that's the way it is. And anyway, I'm on some kind of a detail, and that afternoon I say, get excused, and I'm going to go over and break in that new latrine we have that they're building today. So I go over, and there's one guy sitting way down on one end on the seat, and I said hi, and I sit down on the other end to give him a little space. And I'm sitting there a while, and I hear this guy goes, hey. I said, yeah, what's up? He says, pass the paper. I said, okay. And I look around, I look on the left, I look on the right, I look back at me. There's no paper. So I say, I got no paper over here. Don't you have any paper? He says, no, I got no paper. What are we going to do? I said, I don't know. So I sit there and I think, then I remember these dollar bills that were rolled up in my pocket. And the second man, I got 8 of them. I said, 6 of them. 6. I said, hey, yeah. I said, I got 6 rolled up crap game dollar bills. I'll let you have 3 to get you off the seat. He said, okay. So I pass him up 3 rolled up dollar bills, and he uses them. And then a little while later, I use up mine, and I get off, and I go back to my work detail. And I forget all about it. Well, 5 o'clock rolls around, and we're off the detail, and it's supper time, and we have a kind of an outdoor thing that the kitchen crew sets up in a tent, and you pass it, and there's a lineup, and you have your metal canteen and food tray thing that you use to eat with, and the mess kit they call it. So I pass the kitchen, and the guy looks at me as I'm going by, gives me kind of a funny smile, and hi, and a little bit of a laugh. And I go past him, the other guys in line, there's about 15 of them. At least 4 or 5 of them gives me the funniest smile and a laugh, says hi. And I'm looking at what's going on here. Without my knowing it, this other guy had told everybody in the camp about the dollar bill. And I didn't even think about it anymore. I finally get down to the end of the line. It's about 15 fellas. And the guy I know there, I said, he gives me the same kind of smile with a laugh. And I said, hi. I said, okay, what's all this stuff with this hi? He said, don't you know? I said, no what? He said, you're the guy with $1 million asshole. And so I left, and that was how I got famous. Everybody knew me for about 2 weeks. Give me a funny smile and a laugh because I had the $1 million behind. There you go. Thank you. Okay.